The recording has started.
You did too terribly bad, but you just had the external stuff.
I think they were hit pretty good, but they didn't like.
It
I
was,
guess
it was Southwest.
United had to cancel like 13,000 flights or something.
Delta got hit hard.
Delta was like.
I don't think that Alaska actually canceled any flights that I know of, but
Yeah,
since
everybody
they
else.
had so many empty seats, they ended up with everybody else, the travelers.
Delta got hit hard. My poor son-in-law was all over the US and couldn't get out of the cities because he's a pilot. Oh, he was stuck everywhere. Everywhere they sent him, they're like, sorry, we don't have any way to get you out of this city now.
Well, that's the scary thing is like,
Yeah,
the scary thing is the air traffic control.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were,
Yeah.
I think they were.
I got Alaska flight on the 9th of August. I'm like, I was getting squared away by the
Yeah.
8th of August, so I get on my flight. I'm be happy.
Alrighty, we'll bring the Finance Committee of July 23rd to order and roll call, including all the council members are present. So we got that right? Yes, so. Approval of our June 25th minutes.
No changes.
Carrie, no changes for myself. We will pass those along as written. Thank you very much. Discussion action items. We don't have any like action items per se. These are discussion items that we'll move on to down here, folks. Easy enough.
Department reports and presentations.
I skipped over personnel update, did I?
Yeah.
What is my personnel update today?
Thank you for asking. Brian is out of the office, so the personnel update can be found on page 5. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to him. He'll be back in office next week.
See, on vacation or something?
Yes.
Jeez, we still allow those guys to use guys go fly?
Everybody gets vacation.
Oh, it's terrible time for that. Did you guys have any notes on questions that you had?
Not on personnel.
Okay. Alrighty. So she's gonna go unlock the door. We had another item on here we can get to in a minute, I guess, when we get to the open discussion kind of stuff. But we moved things around thinking the meeting was gonna be a little bit different. Some other people left and stuff, so. We ended up with this, business license regulation. This is what I talked about before at the council. I didn't know if the council is gonna be interested in entertaining any changes in the business license regulation in reference to like big box kind of activities, because it's my understanding, like when we went to, I don't know if you guys were in that, presentation where they had the big box, like example of Issaquah that had Target, and they were what they call, I guess, organized retail crime, being affected with those folks. And Issaquah came up with some interesting concepts about business license regulations where they, the businesses basically, of course, have to maintain a license to operate within the city of Bonney Lake. So we have the ability as city council, if we wanted to look at their operations a little bit and maybe tweak what their activities are or aren't, so that we could help, tampen down supposedly some of the retail organized crime activities in the larger entities possibly. Issaquah has some examples of what they did, and I think they passed out this thing there on what they were doing. And I don't know, Dina's here, probably has some background, it sounds like, on what they were doing to.
Right, so Issaquah, it sounds like, was having the similar issue, which is there are some big box stores that just will have a company policy that they really don't want law enforcement to get involved, or maybe the extent of it will be at most getting some sort of police report number just for insurance purposes, but they aren't going to actively participate in like the prosecution of a crime, or maybe not even report it or call the police. And so then word gets around to criminals, and they know which big box stores are going to have this policy, and so then they know those are the ones to go and steal from, shoplift from. And so what Issaquah did was they passed this law or this code, basically saying that if you fail to report crimes, or the criminal activities happened, the city administrator has the authority to suspend or revoke a business license. Issaquah hasn't actually suspended or revoked anyone's business license using this. This actually became kind of a turning point where they were able to convince those stores to cooperate with law enforcement.
Yeah, and I just didn't know if anybody would entertain that at the council level. It's obviously a full council kind of thing to eventually see that, but I just wanted to make sure that, we were possibly could be okay to consider and have a further conversation basically at the council level.
I think this would be a great one for us to bring forward and talk about, because it is a problem. And as we know, is, our law enforcement can't do their jobs because the big box stores don't allow that to happen.
Well, this
you know?
affects public safety.
Yeah,
I
because
mean, huge.
they'll let them steal right out of their stores, and they just tell their employees, if you say anything or do anything, you're fired. So
Yeah.
people are
Oh, yeah.
losing their jobs over that.
Right.
I know Fred Meyer's is one of the worst for it.
Cause they change, I think, and obviously I don't know the details, and Steve probably knows a lot better than I, but stores like Costco or something have a lot lower retail theft just because of the way they actually run their stores,
Yeah.
as an example
Yeah.
of a Safeway or whatever, but I guess on the good note, you may be aware that it sounds like Safeway may be going away here shortly, so, that's
There
something,
might be a merger between Kroger and Albertson.
yeah,
They're talking about merging.
yeah.
I thought they already merged, like Albertsons and
They're trying to,
Um,
yeah, Albertsons, Kroger,
I think they got some
Albertsons merged with
Safeway.
Safeway.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
And
now
now
there's a talk of Kroger and Albertsons coming together, and
that's a monopoly.
Well, that's why they have to de-invest from so many
Right.
stores. So there's a list of stores that are, and distribution facilities that are kind of up for sale, so that they're de-investing from a certain percentage of the market.
Yeah.
One of those is the Safeway here in the city. Another one is the Hagen's or Top Foods, whatever it is, up in Lakeland Hills.
No, that's like the only grocery store.
Well, they'll probably just go to different ownership.
Right, it's a, like, they're selling all these stores and all these distribution facilities, hoping to find another grocery chain that would take them over. So they would de-invest from the market and not have that monopoly. They're getting below that statutory threshold.
yeah. So that's kind of the administrative side. They have to be
Yeah.
properly, so they're not controlling everything. So it's a big,
It'll be
humongous
fun.
ordeal.
Can I ask?
Go ahead, Chief, please do.
So, it kind of comes, Councilmember Hubler. The policies I know of is that stores have a policy that their employees can't directly get involved with stopping someone physically from stealing items. Not that they can't report it. All of our and I may not have all the history, but my perspective, having been here since October, is our stores are calling to report thefts, and they're providing us with video evidence of who the suspects are, and they're signing trespass forms, and they're identifying suspects and are cooperating with our investigations. So I'm not sure if there's.
Meyer's not doing as well. I don't know if Bonney Lake one is, but I know the Sumner one, there's been several employees that if they say anything like, hey, you're stealing that, or if they say anything to them, they'll lose their jobs.
Oh, yeah,
And I don't know if that's.
I just with our stores up here, we actually work really close with our asset loss protection people.
Good.
Yeah.
We're setting up things and operations to actually work on this, so. I'm
So I
not sure.
know last year with Chief Jeter, there were a couple of the box stores that weren't. I don't know if they've changed since then.
About Walmart and so Walmart, Fred Meyer, Safeway, are they all being?
Safeway definitely is, because we're setting up an operation with them. Walmart and Lowe's are actually installing this thing called a flock system.
Okay,
Provide video evidence and sharing it with us out nationally. And then, so they, a lot of the stores are really taking some steps, but,
okay.
so I'm curious, there's stuff, I'd love
Yeah.
to look into it for you.
Oh, yeah, we'll definitely need your
Like,
input, yeah.
there
Worry
is-
about it. I
Yeah.
mean, sounds like they're already taking steps to.
Maybe it's something we need to. have- And, and I don't know if it's each individual store or if it's corporate.
Right, yeah.
That's my understanding is what I've been told, Fred Meyer down in Sumner, is it's corporate
Right.
policy, like their security guards aren't allowed to do anything. If they see somebody stealing, they're not allowed to stop them. They're not allowed to,
Well, that's
You know,
true, they're not
inhibit
allowed
them,
to
yeah.
physically
Sure.
touch anybody.
Yeah,
Right.
Sure,
Because of liability, they are allowed to call 911 and report it.
yeah,
I'll have to check with Fred Meyer.
sure.
okay.
I'm not sure on that one. Definitely Safeway, Target, they work with us actually very well.
Yeah, no, it'd be great to get that kind of input, and that's why I'd like to, have it at the council level so that the council can get the input on what's going on, what we're doing, what we're not doing, what we can, can't do, all these types of aspects, right? So if they're already compliant, it's great, you know, that, we'll have the ability to make sure that they know that that's the way we want them to act. You know, then it wouldn't be an issue for them type of a thing, but it sounds like maybe individual stores or individual policies could change over a period of time. You know, and we
Hopefully.
kind of want to have a standard that they operate under, right, you know? It's kind of like, yeah.
Marshall,
they're-
are they doing better?
You know, Marshall's the one I see all the reports coming through as much. But I'll talk to officers and
Sure,
find
yeah.
out what they're, because they'll have much better.
Oh, right, sure, yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
The Marshall's always had a big theft issue. People will just walk out of these stores. I've watched people at Fred Meyer walk out with carts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They just load up a cart and just push it out.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah, I've seen it
Yep.
at Home Depot too, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're taking pictures of them, like you say, chief, you know, they're doing that, the employees are taking that kind of activity, but. There's a lot of things that the corporate people can do to, you know, of course, make their theft much more difficult. You've seen Fred Meyer's up their cases where they've done certain things, and there's kind of a plus and minus of that, you know, what things are in cases is not for the customer versus the thief, right?
Yeah. Well, I know, I was shopping at, Fred Meyer here in Bonney Lake. And all of a sudden, the clerks start running around, and she's back, she's in the makeup section. I'm like, what the heck, you know, and so they were kind of just following her around, taking pictures, and she was just shopping away, filling up her cart with all the makeup and all the things, and I don't know why but this was probably a year and a half ago, so I don't know if they were calling the police yet, because police probably couldn't do anything at that point.
Oh, right, yeah, exactly, right, back then, because there is things, you know, when you do your, research there, chief, you know, with like you identified, some of the stores are willing to do their own block systems or devices like that, you know, and if you guys want those tools at other, you know, entities that aren't being as cooperative, then, you know, there's things that we at the regulatory level can say, hey, you know, to be here, you need to operate like this so that, you know, the officers have access to whatever you need to make your, you know, job more effective, right? So,
Yeah, and you can, like, hey, we're looking at what other possibilities we can do and how we make sure our city is safe and we can't do, but we can't worry about what other cities are doing. I know that, but.
because with our large retail sector, right, that's the one thing we have in Bonnie Lake that probably kind of, I don't know how unique, it's a state highway that runs through a large retail corridor, right? It's like, yikes, how do we make that?
in fact, a city of 24,000 people has 5 grocery stores, as I've heard.
No wonder Trader Joe's doesn't want to come to Bonnie Lake.
They need to be over there.
I met the owner of Trader Joe's and I tried to get him to come here.
Yeah,
I was like, we got a big, they hit Albertsons, that was 50 years ago. He's like, we looked into Bonnie Lake, but it's too hard to open a business there.
It is.
Yeah, and I guess I am really curious of what our businesses are doing now, and if they have a plan in place to continue or make it so that they're not allowing it. Because even if they have a plan in place to call the police and there's people are still walking out the door with carts full of stuff, they're gonna get away with it one way or the other, because they're gonna go out and they're gonna sell it on, what do I hear, OfferUp?
OfferUp.
It's a big one that they sell it on. And so that's just trying to figure out how we can, as a city, can stop some of that. And I mean, they're paying a security guard. A gun wielding security guard
Yeah,
to be in their stores, and they're still allowing it, which just blows my mind. So it's like, what are our options? And maybe after you got some reports and you know
Can they
from
be
your officers.
prosecuted if the police officers catch them though? You know, is there any,
Yeah,
is there
They
any?
can, yeah.
Okay, so there's consequences for bad behavior at this point.
Absolutely. I
Okay,
think the issue maybe you can talk to a little bit is I would be curious what kind of liability we take on making Jason's grocery store physically try and stop.
Sure.
If we mandated, Jason, you've got to physically stop people from stealing and then someone gets hurt.
this is not
doesn't
that,
mandate-
yeah,
Yeah, this doesn't mandate it. This is more, they're just allowing people to steal and not reporting it to the
Right,
police and
right.
not, because it actually says that, a business will not be considered as having allowed on the basis employees or owners, did not personally intervene.
Sure. Yeah,
So it's not requiring that, you know,
right.
they stop it, but they need to actually like cooperate with law enforcement.
Correct.
The big one we look at for prosecuting is, you know, are they going to be willing to let their employees, are they gonna tell us who the loss prevention officer is and make them available to come in and testify?
Mm, right, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And this one in number 6, it's like, personally intervene to stop a crime in progress or attempt to personally apprehend the perpetrators of a crime in progress on the business premises. And
So we're not requiring them to intervene and try to stop someone and put
Yeah.
them. put
That's
themselves in.
like the will not kind of line, yeah, they didn't have to do that.
Yeah, business will not be considered.
It's interesting how we can, use the regulatory framework to,
yeah,
make, it
Absolutely.
more effective. The,
I wonder if this could be written a little more clearly
oh, yeah,
Um,
sure, yeah.
on number 6.
For the language about.
Yeah,
being
just
required to
like
intervene.
you're not required.
Yeah,
Sure.
you know,
Oh, yeah,
maybe-
definitely, yeah.
Cause like, this is so long that then you're going, wait, am I supposed to call? I mean, am I supposed to stop them or, you know? Cause you have, let's see, okay, so let me just read the whole sentence here. A business will not be considered as having allowed unlawful or criminal activities on the basis that employees or owners of the business did not personally intervene to stop a crime in process or attempt to personally apprehend the perpetrators of a crime in progress on the business premises. So that's just so long, like, I forgot what the first part of the sentence said, so if we can say,
legally-
you're not
right.
Yeah, not required to physically or
required to
whatever.
physically
Yeah.
stop them,
Uh,
Done.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
full stop.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Exactly.
yeah, I'd be curious on your
Yeah.
guys' side, how things are going.
I'll track down policies from stores for you and then kind of talk to
Sure,
our officers,
yeah.
find out, maybe there is a problem store and, Washington State Liquor Cannabis Board has a pretty interesting thing they did with all the marijuana stores. And they mandated how many security cameras they have.
Oh, sure,
They
right, yeah.
really went through and did,
Yeah.
to your
right,
point,
right,
regularly
yeah.
all that.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, because even to the extent of, I have no, you guys know what types of tools that help you guys out, so especially like the data tools or something involved with, because you've mentioned the flock system, that'd be great for those folks to be, individually kind of funding. I would assume you guys might, you may or may not have access to that, right? To Dina's point, if they're gonna have those devices, they better allow you,
So both
us.
Lowe's and Walmart have already reached out to us. When we're ready,
Mhm.
they'll share all their information with us.
Right, yeah, exactly. So those kind of things would be great.
So the other thing though is also, are we creating a hardship for some of the smaller businesses? Or is this only the big box stores? Because like, if we're gonna require cameras and blah, 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 is this something that Block could provide? Cause I know they're providing a certain amount of cameras. Right, isn't that the system that we're looking into?
Right.
So would they be able to have access to some free cameras? Or if we're gonna just be like, oh, if you wanna have a business here, you have to have X amount of cameras, then that's gonna create a financial hardship, plus, having to keep track and store
Yeah.
all of that information
Right.
is, expensive as well.
Could put it on the building owners too.
Well, we have to, there's gonna be a level, obviously, I would
Yeah,
assume,
yeah,
because you don't want any kind of business that's under whatever, if your gross revenues are under $2 million a year, we're not gonna put these burdens on you.
Yeah,
You
but
know,
you could put it on the building owner.
Yeah,
well, however, something like that to, to your point, to make sure that the smaller businesses don't, because they're not, it's like if they get sold from very much, they're gonna be gone anyways.
yeah, I don't know, I mean, I know Marshall's is, a fairly large chain, but
Mhm.
some of these larger chains are actually owned by individuals too.
Sure.
So they're not necessarily
Oh, yeah, they're
wealthy,
They're
You
just,
know, and I
franchise
don't want-
operations.
but I want our businesses to be able to be profitable.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and I think as long as, if they can't afford the cameras, then as long as they're calling the, you know, 911. Then there's, you know, then that has to count for something other than like, hey, we got this great expensive clock system and we're gonna send you all the data, you know. Blah, blah, blah. So, you know, like will some cell phone, um. Pictures and videos work, you know, as well. To help the smaller businesses or the chains that are, might be considered a big blockchain, but they're owned by an individual that's not, you know. Exceedingly wealthy, but just, you know, trying to make ends meet, and, you know. I mean, it shouldn't matter how much, you know, if they live on Lake Taps or if they live, you know, down in the ghetto, it shouldn't matter. You know, it still costs a lot of money to maintain a camera system, so
Definitely, yeah, right.
I just don't want anybody to be harmed by
Well, yeah.
policies that we're
Exactly.
trying to implement.
Precisely.
So,
Yeah, definitely a balance between, you know, the public harm and it's the exact conversation we'll probably have with the flock. Or
the safety of all, you know, the whole, the community as a whole versus, you know.
The individual, right?
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
There are individual owners for a lot of these places too. So.
And the chief, I don't know if, I don't remember, is there some kind of retailers association too? You could probably get input
Yeah,
from.
there's,
that
Washington,
covers-
so we work
Oh, yeah.
with
There
our
you go.
local business association, our CSOs,
Mhm.
hold monthly meetings, but there's something called work at Washington, a retail organized theft association. And they actually do put out bulletins. A lot of these companies actually have their own private investigators
Mhm.
that go through and find out, okay, we identified that person as Mark Baird, they're stealing and can't rent, and they actually kind of have like a
Yeah.
top 10 list and they share that information
Oh.
with all their stores. So that's where the stores call us, hey, Joe Smith just walked in, we're very aware. And frequently we're able to go over and arrest them right then, because they have other warrants, right? Instead of having to wait for them to steal something again,
Mhm.
they normally have warrants in the system for previous thefts, so.
Okay. I don't know if it's okay, I'd like to share this is
Sure.
kind of what our trial today was based on, was actually that where they have the photos of a person who's been going around stealing at similar like stores in the region, and they have regional loss prevention officers that oversee loss prevention for, like, for example, all the Targets or all the Kohl's in the state or all of Western Washington, and they saw this woman who they recognized from that, and ended up also identifying a vehicle out in the parking lot that was associated with her. And that car had the defendant in it, and immediately, like as soon as the two police officers are going up to it, just like hit the gas and like completely sped out of the Kohl's, got out onto South Prairie, went into oncoming traffic, jumped the median to like go the opposite way with, you know, the correct flow of traffic. So, you know, those, you know, kind of top 10 photo lists are very useful, because they ended up, you know, they didn't end up stealing anything, but still, even though they're not stealing, you know, very dangerous driving situation, you know, if you're in that parking lot, because the person sped off. We had it was really cool. It was on the body worn camera where you could see
Really?
him hitting the gas in his little, you know, Honda Civic going way too fast in a parking lot. And so,
Wow.
yeah, so, and the jury, he was found guilty on both counts.
Wow. That's fabulous.
Means we have a good city. We are doing our part to try and help here.
Nice. So it'll be, whatever month or whatever, give you some time to do
Okay.
some research, whatever Dina wants and you want to do with
Perfect.
putting together, whatever staff, the mayor wants to supply the council for a larger discussion, see if they're still
Yeah.
interested in some stuff. Sounds good.
Well, I'd be curious to see, yeah, like I said, I'd be curious to see how our city's businesses are
Compares,
doing,
yeah.
so.
Yeah, ultimately, we don't want to make us the place to be, right? We want to be, don't go to Bonney Lake and do that.
Yes.
Go to whatever, somewhere else, say Tacoma or whatever, sorry.
Deputy Mayor, is that coming back to finance or is that going to like
It'll
open?
go to full workshop at some point, but we'll wait until, we can have staff have plenty of time to do whatever they want to do. They got some other things they're working on. That's not.
I think we have a really full plate for just a little bit, so,
Mhm.
but don't let us sit by the wayside.
It's all good. Oh, I gotta get onto that one. So we'll move along on our agenda here to, we had another discussion item in there that we can get to if we have time to, but we got this one on here for the Allen York Park update for the parking issue and all good news on that front here, I think, was the last word I heard, right? For changing it, ultimately it's well, I guess right now it's my understanding that the mayor has basically authority to do whatever kind of timing they want to do over
Yeah.
there.
There's a couple issues that we were asking to look into. Before you know this, I just want to first say that the paid parking at Allen York Park is having the desired effect. We are taking the park back.
Casual person?
Chief, I don't know if you have any statistics, but, as a matter of fact, I do. Just the observational data from that we are seeing from our staff is that the park isn't as crowded and we are seeing more families with children at the park than we have in the past. And we haven't seen, for example, just, observational data. The parks crews are usually the one that's cleaning up after.
There you go, right?
Right? And typically, last year, we were finding lots of beer cans and liquor bottles on the beach and throughout the park. We are not finding as much this year, so noticeably less. So the things that we've instituted, while, yes, I know are not always popular, they are achieving the desired effect that the council wanted to have of taking the park back and returning it to the community so that families will use it. Chief, I'll let you do the statistics and then I'll talk about the paid park.
Yeah, we're still working on the crime statistics. I think the number one, we've had no actual incidents involving guns this year. We had one report of somebody with a gun, but it was while we were busy arresting a known felon that was at the park. And his buddy across the street, we're pretty sure, tried to call him to try and get us to go elsewhere. Fights are down, reports of fights, reports of drug use, reports of reckless driving. Those are all dramatically down, as are all the calls from the neighbors in the surrounding neighborhoods, not being able to get in and out of their driveways. You are probably getting a lot less phone calls about people being parked all throughout the neighborhood. We're getting very few of those. Here's some stats from this last weekend. We issued 64 parking citations over the weekend.
Nice.
That was with the earliest one being 12:25 in the afternoon. So the idea that the park is being full, that we have discretion about our enforcement, we're just going when it's busy. So that just shows you that from noon until 5, 6 o'clock at night, that's when our violators are coming.
So is that on the parking thing? Is that your officers are issuing a parking ticket or something like that?
Correct.
Is that what that is?
Yep, we're going through using the new parking application. We
Oh,
found their plate
Oh, yeah.
and we find out that they haven't paid.
Mm.
We did have, we did have some, we did have some tickets earlier in the day that were for boat trailer violations. So people that didn't have permits for their boat trailer,
Oh, okay.
that we're trying to sneak into that. Those are the only kind of early morning ones we're getting. But as far as actual Allen York Park parking infractions, we're not even going until it gets busy. But you
Sure.
can see how many people are not abiding by the new ordinance, if you will.
Okay.
But I'll work out some crime stats for Allen York Park, but just quantitative. Guess that's our qualitative data. Talk to all the officers, this is now family friendly parking. Now Pierce County Park has been overrun a couple times. They've had to close down. They're having lots of issues there.
Weird.
That's what you could imagine we would be having, I think, if we did.
Oh, yeah.
It was multi-pronged, right? It was not just the parking.
Oh, yeah.
It was Public Works doing all the clearing of the land for us, kind of our new security plan,
Yeah.
social media pushes, I think.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And then getting to the paid parking, there was kind of two things that we were asked to look at. One was, can we change the hours and what would that take? And the other one was, can we have differentiated rates for residents and non-residents? So we'll talk to the first one, or the easy one first. So in reviewing the municipal code and spending some time with it, yes, there is a provision that allows the mayor to set policies and procedures within the confines that the council has established for paid parking. We believe that provides the mayor with the authority to set the paid parking time limits when paid parking is in effect on those dates. So in looking at the statistics from the data we're collecting from when people are paying and we're seeing the peak, And then also looking at observationally when the park is starting to get busy. Our professional recommendation is to have paid parking start at 10 a.m. And so before 10 a.m. it would be free. After 10 a.m. you would have to begin to pay. So if you got to the park at 9:30, you would be free from 9:30 to 10, but then would have to start paying at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But people who are coming in the early morning to walk their dog or fish off the boat pier, they would be able to park for free because the paid parking wouldn't kick in until 10 a.m. It relates to differential parking rates. It gets a little bit more tricky. One is we would have to make that change by ordinance to establish a resident parking pass. However, because both Field 5 and Allen York Park are involved with RCO money, there's some limitations on how we can set the differential rates. So if we offer a season pass to residents, we have to offer a season pass to non-residents. And the most that we can charge the non-resident is twice what we charge the resident. So if you were to say, we want a season pass of $30, non-residents can buy a pass for $60. And we have to allow for both, and it can only be twice. We also cannot set the rate at 0. If we set the rate at 0, we have to then set the rate at 0 for non-residents. And that's the requirement that comes to us from RCO because of the way that we acquired the parks and the deed restrictions that were placed on the park. So our recommendation is if the council wanted to move forward with some sort of season pass, that would be something to implement next year because we have to work out some of the details. Chuck did talk to our vendor, Park Mobile, and they can do that season pass. Some challenges with the season pass is the way it would be set up is that Park Mobile would basically have a season pass that's for sale that anybody can purchase, which would be that value that's twice as much as we charge residents. Residents would then have to come to the city and demonstrate that they are a resident of the city. And what we use to determine that is where myself, chief, everybody's been talking about what are we going to use to determine what a resident is, proof of residency. And then once that's determined, then they would get a code. And when they go online to pay for their season pass, they would enter that code. That code is tied to a specific license plate. So if you own 4 vehicles, if you want to take all 4 vehicles there, you'd have to buy 4 passes. If you want to just buy from one, you'd also have to take that vehicle. Because the only way to make sure we're doing enforcement is if we're tying it to specific license plate numbers. We can't tie it to households. We have to tie it to license plates. In talking with the clerk's office, chief's office, my office, we really don't have the staff to verify 11,000 houses that they are residents of the city. That would be a huge increased demand on staffing that we're not staffed up to do. In addition to doing already the boat launch passes and now the clerk's also taking on the RPZs. This would be another one that would have to be figured out. And there would be some needs for some staffing for us to be able to support that operation.
Well, like I know if I wanna check my voter registration or whatever, I can go to vote.gov and I can type in my address.
Yep.
And it lets me know what my district is. It lets me know where my residence is, all of the things and who I can vote for and who I can't vote for depending on district. So, I mean, I don't see why that couldn't be implemented. Just go to the city website, type in your address and it says, yep, you're a resident. Here's your code.
We have to verify that you're actually living in that house. Right, you can't just go, if you go in and type in this address,
Yeah.
we could tell you if that address is in or outside the city. Right, what we can't tell you is whether or not you reside at that house.
Okay.
And so the challenge is with determining whether you reside there gets a little tricky because one thought is, well, use utility bill. Well, if you rent, you may not get a utility bill, whether you're renting a house or you're renting an apartment, you may not be getting a utility bill because that might be how your landlord's got your rent structure, that you just pay them rent and they pay all the utilities. The other one is vehicle registration. but people may not switch their vehicle registration, so it might still show their old addresses. So part of this implementation, which is why we're recommending if the council wanted to move this way, is to do it next year, is to identify, well, one, a list of documents that would be acceptable, which would include utility bills, but could also include vehicle registrations. We'd have to do the research and find other ways people could prove that that's where they reside.
Lease agreements, things like that.
Lease agreements, there could be a list of documents that you could present to us. But someone would have to physically check that, which is where this additional staffing is needed to support this program.
This would cost us more to do that than it would be just to change the time to 10 a.m.
Well, that's one thing you can definitely do, right? So there's multiple things going on there.
Yeah, because I know like
Yeah.
the school district they implemented a plan similar like what Jason's talking about too, because there were so many people that were using somebody else's address but didn't really live there, so that their kids could go to the Center Bonney Lake School District. So they implemented a plan to make it so that you had to provide documentation showing that you actually live at that residence, so that they could stop that issue. Because our schools are so full.
Oh, yeah.
So I see that could be a huge undertaking for staff to have to take that on.
And we have a lot of people who think they live in Bonney Lake. They have a Bonney Lake address,
I know, right?
AKA Tahale. But their Bonney Lake address has nothing to do with their jurisdictional limits. Their Bonney Lake address has to do with the fact where the United States Postal Service says their mail's coming from.
Yeah.
So for example, the Public Service Center, which is inside the incorporated city limits of Bonney Lake, has a Buckley address because our mail comes from the Buckley Post Office because of the way that the federal government draws zip codes. So there's nothing we can do. We can't just look at an address and say, yep, you're in the city or not. We also can't just say, yep, that address is in or out the city because you may not reside there. And once we sell the passes to that address, if the true owner shows up and says, no, I reside there, we have a problem. So it's not that it's undoable, but there would be definitely a need for a staffing increase in some department to cover the cost of facilitating this program of the passes, because we'd have to sell them to both residents and non-residents.
And
So
And
would you,
that's,
because
sorry,
almost every single letter that I received on the parking.
Mhm.
Was based on, we already pay for these parks, you know? So where is there evidence that, these people are actually paying for the parks, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to defer to Sherry on kind of how the tax side works.
We were
Oh.
saying like it's not on a bill,
Nope.
No,
it's
may-
not on
it's sales
utilities.
No, it's not even sales tax.
It's
may.
just when you buy the
It's
house
you may
or
or
when
may
you
not
sell
know
it.
how to.
Oh,
It's
good.
when you sell a house or when it's built, isn't it?
That'd be excellent, excellent.
So we get a portion of, not all of it. So there's real estate excise tax when you sell a house in the city, goes to streets, parks, and general governmental CIP. We only get about 30% of what they call REIT 2 for parks.
Yeah.
And then park impact fees. Sherry's got her hand raised and she's the finance expert, so I'll defer to her.
Yep, Sherry.
the mayor also has his hand raised
You're
too.
muted.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Well, I can't
Can you
hear
hear
you
me?
yet. I don't know. And your,
Nope.
You can't hear me?
Leah hand's still up.
Nope,
Uh-uh.
can't hear you.
Let's see.
No, go down.
Did I know?
Yeah,
Something?
yeah.
I can
go
hear you,
down.
Sherry.
Well, I'm glad you can hear me. It must be on their end. You can hear me now? That's a thumbs up, Leslie? Okay. Couple things. One, when it comes to personnel, our 25-26 budget is truly not going to allow for more personnel. I just don't see how we're going to make it happen. I'm already struggling with just the start of it, and I'm not even halfway through it yet. So adding new personnel is something that's a dream
Yeah.
item and not a wish list item, if you will. I just don't see that happening. Do the citizens pay for the parks? Not really. So this is actually something the city of Des Moines is also going through right now with the marina, Jason. The residents, me being a part of the city, are upset because they feel they've already paid for it. And they also just implemented parking again. And the residents are up in arms about it. Once it died down, people haven't said anything again. And they're saying the same things, Jason, that you said, that there's less crime, there's less nefarious activities, there's less drinking, there's less everything. It was a spike here. People were really upset about it. And the city came out and said, you haven't paid for that. Yes, you pay taxes, but you've not paid for the park. You may have paid for it as part of a home sale or a home purchase, but you really haven't paid for the park. You're paying for taxes that support the people that work at the park, but you really haven't paid for the park. It's the same thing that all cities, I think, probably go through. So feel free to look up the city of Des Moines if you want to see kind of how they tackle that. But they're having the same issue with their marina park right now.
Yeah, the marina and beach
Closed it
park.
off. Yeah, they closed it off.
That kind of answer your question, Greg? Or,
Yeah, because I mean, that's kind of like, you know, people are like, we pay for these, we already pay our property taxes, we pay this, we pay that towards, and it goes towards the parks. And I'm like, I didn't really have much of a rebuttal. I didn't know what to say because I was like, I haven't seen that on any of my bills.
right.
And I'm
No,
going
it
back
goes
through my
towards the parks
utility bill
personnel.
and everything else, and I didn't see park anything, so.
No, it supports
that's-
parks personnel.
I think it would be helpful for us as council, because we are all getting so many of these emails. If we could work together with staff to find an appropriate response, because we know the parks were purchased with RCO grants. So we know the land had nothing to do with the taxpayers of Bonney Lake. And if we know that they're not paying taxes directly towards our parks, and we know, you know, some of it comes from real estate, you know, excise tax, and some of it comes from park impact fees, then if we could come up with a draft that just like, hey, council, here's, you know, a response that works really well, so that we're really eloquent and we're careful in our wording and we're not like saying anything wrong. I think that would be really helpful, like.
Yeah, we can do that.
Sherry.
I also have one other question, and the mayor wants to speak after me. I don't want him to get lost in the shuffle. I know Chuck said last week, so like in the first week, I believe there were 8,000 transactions. You know, not all of those are full day parking. Some of them are just a 2-hour parking or whatever it is that he has offered. But my question is really, how many % of that are really complaining? Is it, you know, are you getting the 5 same people? So is it 0.001% of the people complaining? It's something to think about.
Sure, yeah.
So Chuck sent me some new data today, and so far we've had 1,500 transactions since we've instituted paid parking a week and a half ago. So,
Jason, you were supposed to let the mayor talk.
oh, sorry, Mayor.
That's okay. I can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, great, thank you.
I totally agree. I think this is a loud minority, and this is what happens when you change something. You're always going to get some pushback on it, but it's been a huge positive win for the actual citizens of Bonney Lake who can actually use their park again. As far as the resident versus non-resident deal, I think we're making this way too difficult. Look at their driver's license. What does it say? Where does it say they live? Do they live in the city? Do they not? That's it. And if they haven't updated their stuff, that's too bad for them. They should go do that, right? It seems like a super easy way to just take care of the business there. So that's really all I had to say. I don't want us to make things way more difficult than they really need to be. Like the KISS method.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Mayor, what do you think about changing the hours down there or something for the?
Yeah, I'm all for that. Actually, Jason and I just talked about that today. And I think starting at what I'm seeing in the shift briefs is around 10 o'clock is when it really starts to kind of get busy on the really hot days. So to me, it makes total sense to start the parking issue at 10. And that way, everybody who's there before that, they get to use it for free. The people that are walking their dogs or, you know, fishing or whatever, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Is that just amount to putting a little sub sign underneath that other one, whatever the hours, something, is that what it is?
We actually looked into this. I'll let you let you know what you found out from.
Yeah, so it's actually cheaper just to reprint the sign, remake the signs. So we would have to go in that direction. They're a little over $17 a piece.
How many signs are in the park?
There's about 25 of them.
Mhm.
Where are they placed at? Cause I literally saw one
Yeah, there are
when
a
we
lot
were
of
there
poles. There's
on
not a lot
Wednesday
of-
night.
There's a lot of them.
There,
And the one I saw was up high enough on the pole that it wasn't even at like car height.
Mm.
It was up high.
Yeah.
And I just barely caught it as I was getting ready to pull out of the Field 5's parking lot.
There's
And I
probably,
caught it up high and I was like, wait,
at first
There
I
was
didn't see them either, but then I started spotting them. I
there's
don't know
probably,
why.
there's 10 of them, I think, at
Yeah.
Field 5.
Everybody's trying to pull, including when you first pull in the driveway.
Yeah.
There's some right
I
there.
mean, I didn't even see those
Mhm.
when we first pulled it.
Yeah,
I
there's
was like,
Yeah.
are these
There's
things?
like 10 of them there. I
That's
think in the little short parking lot, there's another 10 in there, and I think there's 5 in this parking lot by the snack shack.
Okay.
There's like 30 of them out there between the three.
Is that just, because they don't have hours on them right now, right? So is it just the concept that
It
it's
just like
it's
dawned up that
mounting?
they.
Well, no, that's
It
the
is.
big sign, the
Oh.
paid parking signs that Park Mobile gave us. There's about 30 of those.
Uh-huh.
And below that, there's a little thing that says October 1st to,
May 1st, so.
May 1st, October 1st.
Uh-huh.
You can be Thunder
Vehicles.
Toad and the VMC. Those we need to change to
Okay.
say
Yeah.
October 1st to May, or May 1st, October 1st, 10 AM to
whatever, close.
close or whatever it is. And then we'll put the citation stuff still on there. And those are the ones that we need to reprint. It's gonna cost us some money. And so we'll implement that fully once we get that done. I think Sandy Signs is giving you
They
pretty,
said about a week, but they might be able to turn around faster, so.
Okay.
Well, we can pay for that through the parking fund, right?
Mm,
Because that's what that parking money's
It's
for,
park money,
right?
so-
no, the park money has to go to the park CIP.
Yeah.
So that was something I needed to get with Sherry to make sure that we're setting up a separate little, OER, a little sub account in the park CIP where that money gets deposited. And that's also a requirement actually of RCO, that if we're taking and making money off the parks, it's reinvested into the parks through either expansion or capital.
That would actually be something great to add to a broad letter that we put out too, that like, hey.
And that is in our messaging now.
Please.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then,
it is.
and put in there, like, this has been a huge positive win for the city of Bonney Lake residents. You guys get to have your family park back.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, here's the statistics, crime's lower, like, maybe just kind of putting some of those pieces out to our citizens that might help them to be a little more like,
Just don't get too.
the ones that
carried away
are the
because, you know,
big voices.
There's gonna be incidents that, we don't want to look
And
like
we've been
idiots.
careful in our messaging.
Yeah. And that's why I haven't really said much of anything, because I'm like, I don't know what to do, and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Mhm.
Because,
Well, I think it's good to have something put together that you can respond to,
Yeah.
but
Oh, yeah.
not necessarily, we've put the information out there. And we don't need to keep doing it because it'll just keep drawing up the same things over and over again.
Mhm.
But if you're
Right.
getting emails, it would be an easy like, okay, hey, here's a nice template of all the information.
Yep.
Yeah,
How
and that's
and how you
why-
can respond in a positive way. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
So we have a FAQ, from our website, so we pulled that together, Lauren helped pull that together for our concert night, so but we can add something additional information to that as well. So then that could be something council could attach and send and
Right.
share.
Yeah, yeah.
As well.
And on Wednesdays, the parking starts at 4?
No,
It's
it's free.
all day.
Oh,
No.
all day?
No, it's just an hour,
Half hour before.
half hour before the actual city event.
Cause Tunes at Tap starts at 5?
Yep, so I think half hour before, so Tunes and Taps, yep, the outdoor market starts at
Right.
5, so
Is
4:30.
that on the parking thing right now?
We've been sending that out, that parking for events is,
Half hour before, 30
Yeah.
minutes before. Just in our messaging, because we can't have that on the signage as well, and then, because it's all city sponsored events, so if we add a sponsored event, then that would do that too.
so like for National Night Out, Tuesday night, August 6th, it will be,
It's actually a little bit earlier for that night, so because of the setup of that event.
Okay.
And the good news is the way it works is if a citizen tries to pay,
Uh-huh,
it just doesn't let them.
Oh.
So it's not like a citizen will accidentally pay when they're not supposed to.
yeah, it'll bring up a
Okay.
0.
Awesome. I like
It'll bring up a
Obviously, I
0.
haven't-
Plus fees and taxes.
I know. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, at tonight's council meeting, we had a little blurb scheduled down there too to inform the, the rest of the council type of a thing. So we'll probably kind of redo the short synopsis of this there also kind of thing. I don't know if
Jason likes
Jason's
repeating
gonna
stuff,
still be
right?
there. He's great at doing that. And, cause I'm kind of hearing that the council's very much in favor of, and the mayor's obviously fully in charge of the hours, right? So they're gonna change the hours. And they're gonna take a look further at possible residential discounts, whether or not that's ever that'll be a later kind of issue.
Right, is there a way to do like half? Like, instead of $4, then the residents can pay $2?
There would not be a way to do that on the hourly rate because of the way that the system is set up.
You like a pass thing or
So you'd
something.
have to, we can't mess with the rates without giving out like codes that then can go to anybody, and that's why. Yeah, Chuck looked into it. We can do a pass, but we can't do it on the hourly side.
Nice. Hey.
Well, thank you guys for working on that, because that's huge to know that we can do a little bit different. I'm okay.
Yay, and that was a lot of work by staff, by the way. If anybody doesn't understand what went on in the background there was a lot of stuff that went on in the background. To get to that point. There was a huge amount of backroom stuff going on.
There was a lot of emails.
You're glued to your computers.
Yeah. Hey, are you in your office? Can I call you?
Right.
Not
Yeah, that's great. So we don't have any public comments. I don't even know why that's in here generally. We don't do that here. Committee discussion, open
We used to have
committee.
public comment a lot
you?
during public safety.
Oh, but yeah, public safety normally does, right? Because they have a lot of public that comes to public safety and does that kind of stuff. Did you guys have anything left over from anything on that? We'll be adjourned for now, and then we'll have some time before we go down and I don't know. Hopefully, Carrie, did you figure out how we can mechanize tonight, kind of with
You could stop it.
double mayor thing?
I think I'll just start us off, and then
Yeah.
you can kind of
Yeah.
help with what people are saying.